Okay, everybody, welcome back to project number 9, where we're going to fabricate the angle slip S-cleat configuration there. We're going to design this, or we're going to make this particular angle S-cleat for a 10-inch duct, so it'll be a 1/4 inch short. Some people may want it shorter than that, but we're going to go a 1/4 inch short, and if we have to, we can cut it off later. With that, all flat S-cleats should be the 1/4 inch shorter, they say, per this reference here. But when using angle S-cleats, it's usually going to be on ducts that are 20 inches wide or wider, as we kind of discussed in project number 8. So let's get into it. The angle S-cleat has quite a bit of layout to it, actually. There's quite a few numbers that have to be taken into account. But let's start with the base piece, and then the numbers will fall together in just a second. So they asked us to cut it 9 3/4 in length there, which I've already done on this part, and just took it over to the shear and cut it 9 3/4. And then the width, it says on either end, it doesn't matter, is 6 5/8, and I've got that taken care of as well, and it is square. So we can use a couple different methods to laying these out, these lines. First thing I did is I used my scribe, and I found my 5/8 mark, and I just simply scribed that right down the edge there for that. And for this project, for demonstration purposes, I will do it on both sides. This will be one of the only projects that I will do it, make my marks on both sides. But anyway, I've got my 5/8 mark. Now I'm basically done with my scribe, and for all the other marks on here, I'm going to have to use my square. So I just took it. I'll do it this direction. And I focused on the one side. These dimensions on the left here will be from the other direction, and it just gives you a different point of view. So if you focus on all these will work just fine. So I've got the 5/8 done. Now I've got to measure my inch and 5/8, which I used my square and my scratch awl. Took it on the edge and I marked it as well. Then I went to the 2 5/8, and I marked that one with my scribe. Then I went to 3 3/4, set that on the square, and I marked my 3 3/4 up here. 4 7/8 next, way up there by 5. 4 7/8, and I marked that one there. And then, of course, the 6 5/8 is the full width of the sheet, so that's where we stop. Now, if you want to check them marks, you can go from the other direction and measure in between 1 3/4 from the edge of the sheet, just using your square there, 1 3/4, and then there should be 1 1/8 between the next two marks. The next blank there should be 1 1/8, followed by 1 inch, and then your remainder of 1 inch on the project. And I marked that on actually both sides, and you can see them on this project. There was some other marks on this because it was a piece of scrap material laying in the sheet metal rack there. So let's go ahead and look at the fabrication part of this procedure. The fabrication part of this procedure, the first bend is probably the most confusing. And the reason it's the most confusing is it's because it's not the first bend or the line that we've drawn on the previous plan. It's actually the second. So we're looking at the 1 5/8, the second bend on our project, and it says to bend that 180 degrees back on itself. So I've taken some time to number 1, 2, and then the 2 is actually going to end up here as well in a second. So let's start with the first bend though and go from there. So we'll throw it in our break, not on the 5/8 mark, but we're going to mark it on that second mark that we placed in there, or we're going to set it anyway. And then we'll fold that all the way over on itself there, and then we'll finish that up with the 180 degree portion, pulling that down where it belongs. Okay, now we've got the first part of our fabricated piece, the 1 5/8, our first bend. We've got 5/8 remaining because that's going to be taken into account next here. Maybe I'll just let that off to the side for a second. Then we turn the page, And it says it wants us to take that 5/8 mark on this side here, which should be the same as that inch mark. So we got the 5/8 mark, which is the same as the next inch mark. Once that folded over, it'll land on this 5/8 mark here. And it says to bend that up at a 90 degree with the tail on the bottom. So let's go ahead and take care of that next. So we'll set it in there at our inch, right on the line. And we're going to bend that one up only to a 90, and then we'll stop there. And now we've got our part. I don't know if you can see it, but there is the edge, the 5/8 edge here, like on the plan, in the inch height on our to start our angle S-clip off there. Let's go on to the next part of the plan then. After you got here, it's basically a Z configuration, just flipping it back and forth. So now we should have our 1.125" mark from the edge of the piece over, and we're going to bring that back down the other direction to about a 45-degree angle, or however you want to see that. So we'll slip it back in the apron, and we're going to pull that up until it hits the backstop. Again, looking at our part like this, it matches just like it's supposed to. Now we're down to the next 1.125", and we're going to bend this one back the opposite direction to make it look like this. So the next mark follows out with the I think it's 1 3/4 remaining. So we're going to slip it in the break again, line it up, and you may have to flex this one just a little bit to get that to stretch, or on the previous bend, don't bend it quite as far as I did. That can help you as well. And then we'll pull that up again until it hits the backstop. So it's starting to take that Z configuration with the look there. Something like that, if you can see it. Okay, and then we turn the page in our little plan booklet here. And it says to close them all the way down on each other, and I can kind of do it by hand here, so maybe you can see it on each end. But we'll finish it off in the apron break to take our measurements. So let's finish it. Slip it in there, and we're going to close them down till they're smooth. Oops. And I'll do it on both edges so everything's nice and smooth and tight. So it looks like that again. So our bottom should measure 1 3/8. The top from here to the edge here should be 1 1/8", and we should be 1 inch tall on our angle S-clip there for that final step. And then they've got a perspective view and some dimensions of how the duct would go together for that 10-inch duct. So if we got one piece, again, this has to be to the outside for the strength, to keep the duct from bouncing and making noise, and sometimes you get that whoop whoop when the furnace kicks in where you hear the duct pop. This angle S-clip should help with that tremendously. I still do try to put the duct with the airflow. If you can see this one on the bottom, on the top, I would prefer my airflow is in this direction, meaning the duct being inside of it. It's kind of just one of my pet peeves. Not a real big deal though. We tape the seams. So that's the last part of the plan there. Let me show you how this goes together with a piece of duct. So here I've got a 10-inch section, and we're going to set that in there together. So we use the edges that we just bent with that rolled edge there, and we're going to slip them together. We're a 1/4 inch short of the 10, so that should sit just fine. And then for demonstration purposes, I'm just going to use the previously fabricated in the previous project, our S-clip there. We'll slip that on the other side to hold this duct together. I've already pre-bent my drives on both pieces here, so we should be able to slip this all together, starting with one corner, working the other corner in there. And it pays to have gloves for this kind of stuff because these are sharp pieces. And then just roll that duct back in line with the piece until they line up. It's easier here on the table than it is in the field. It's nice to have two people as well. And then we take our drive clips, previously fabricated 2 projects ago, I believe, and they will slide on and catch both of the fittings on the left side, and we use the one on the right side as well. And if that was a 20-inch duct, it would be very, very sturdy in the center. This one's not cross-broke or anything, but that can also help you strengthen them ducts. The other side is cross-broke to give you that example for that extra added strength. So anyway, I hope this helped you, and we will catch you later on the next one. Thank you.